A few weeks ago, I shared with you the process of me designing this instrument that kind of doesn't really exist yet for a client. It's a sort of a mini 12-string acoustic guitar, sort of cross with like a mandolin sort of size. And I showed you the process of sketching it all out and designing it. So now let's jump into part two, and I'm going to show you the process of making the body for this instrument. Here's one of them. I'll try to make in two. Check it out. So if you don't remember or didn't watch part one, I do suggest going back and seeing it, and it gets a little bit more into the idea of the design of this. And I'd started making the body for one as a trial and error, and I'm going to finish that body and then make the clients, because this way I have that first one to work on. So the first thing I need to do is create a neck block, and I'm sticking with my bolt-on neck design for my acoustic guitars because I really like it. I think it just makes life a lot easier. And then in the first video, I created this mold, and I talk about how I laser curve my reclaimed closet doors to make these sides. So now this is the second time I'm doing this, but this one's for real. This is for the client, so it has to be perfect. And I also, in the first video, I just cut on my laser a bunch of thin slices of wood and stacked them up for my tail block and these little corner blocks that seem to me to make more sense than trying to cut something that tall and skinny on my CNC. And so I, as you can see here, just glue all these little pieces right into place and create my supports that way. It works fine. Glue's, actually it's probably stronger than using a solid block of wood, honestly. And I have these big rubber bands that help me sort of get everything into shape. Then of course there's curving that goes on the inside too, and this all worked really well. It's a small instrument, so there's a little bit more room for improvisation, and the physics of it are just simpler when you're making these small curves. Now lather, rinse, and repeat. And I did use my insets to just make sure everything was straight and copacetic, but I couldn't fit them in and do the curving at the same time. So once I was happy that everything was close enough for rock and roll, I went along and put these on the other side. I can't bend these sharp angles, so I designed the templates to have the wood go over and pass, and then, of course I have to cut that excess wood off. And so now it's time to start making the top. I'm using for the top of the client's build, this is some reclaimed poplar from an old pump organ. At one point in time I got a whole bunch of pump organs in from a buddy of mine that were beyond repair, and I've made a ton of stuff from them over the years. So I love making instrument parts out of old instruments, and this is a great way to use some old wood in a new instrument. And of course I use my laser to cut an oversized top and back, the top from the poplar and then the back from the reclaimed closet door. And of course I had to cut some reclaimed closet door for the other one that I'm building that's the sort of test stuff out. This is a mix of the same sort of glow-in-the-dark epoxy that I'm going to use on the neck and that we experimented with in the first video. And this time saver, they call that. The drum sander really makes quick work of finishing all that type of stuff off. And so now I just want to make sure that I can put my bracing in and without it clashing with the bracing on the inside of the body. So I traced those lines, and now I moved over to my sort of improvisationalized go deck, and I'm just using driveway markers. Those are something that's commonly found at your hardware store, and they're fiberglass. They have a little bit of spring and bend to them, and you can see they work perfectly if you just set up that's why I had to add a little wood to my ceiling, a little height. And it's a perfect way to quickly clamp things that are otherwise very difficult to get at with clamps. Works great. And here's your friendly reminder that CNCs and lasers do not replace all of your woodworking skills. You still need some of them, and they need to be utilized just like they used to be. It's just the CNC removes a couple of those things. And here I decided to design sort of a cross almost between the traditional X bracing of a steel string guitar and like a fanned bracing that a nylon string guitar would have. I know it's more X than fan, but just adding that center support sort of made me think of the fan bracing. These little mini quick clamps are very handy for sort of setting up and getting your clamping started, but they're not as good as the old-fashioned screw-down clamps that I'm using more of. But what I like to do is use those little mini clamps that don't have a ton of squeeze pressure to get everything lined up, and then I can go around and get my good clamps on. Now, this guitar has a sound hole at the top, and I wanted to just look in and see nothing. We're going to be doing black for everything anyway, so I used a little bit of black 3.0 and just painted the parts that would be visible if you looked in the instrument. I didn't want to waste paint on parts you couldn't see. And then once I had that done, I was ready to glue on my top. And again, you'll see that I'm switching back and forth in the filming between the two different instruments. And right now this is not the client's instrument that I'm gluing together. It's my practice one. I built the other instrument just for that sole purpose of practicing. And now once that worked well, I can go and do the client's. Every step of the way was like this. And now a word from our sponsor, which is me. I don't take corporate money to keep this channel afloat, and one of the ways I do keep it afloat is by relying on sales from viewers like you who shop over at squaretools.com. And let me just show you one of the many things that you can find over at squaretools.com. This is a typical little machinist ruler that you would find at the hardware store, and most of them are like this, and you'll see how it's centimeters on one side, inches on the other. The back of the ruler has a bunch of useless information you're never going to look at. And the problem with this is now if I want to measure something on both sides of the ruler, I have to do some math, or I have to do 1 in centimeters, 1 inches. I wanted a line that went straight across, and I couldn't find a ruler like that anywhere. So I made one. It's called the Perfect Little Ruler. Centimeters on one side, inches on the other. Does everything you need it to do. Fits right in your pocket, and it's only available at squaretools.com. Back to the show. I always make my top and back the shape that I need, but I oversize it a little bit, and then that gives me a little bit of room for error and a little bit of play. So you can see there that I'm just trimming off the excess of the oversized top and sanding it all in smooth. And sanding and more sanding, and I sanded up to about 320 grit before applying some water-based Lockwood's black dye. I didn't go further than 320 on the first pass because this is a water-based dye that will raise the grain, and then I went a little bit higher, I think to 400 or 600 when I cleaned this up before applying finish. Since I used a water-based color, I have to use a non-water-based finish, otherwise it would make the color run, and I used my new favorite non-water-based finish, which is natural varnish, and brushed on a few coats of that. Okay, we'll leave it here for now, and next week I am going to make the neck and show you the process for that, and then we'll do one more video where I put the whole thing together and make it play, and I'm really excited to do that because at the time that I'm recording this, I haven't really done that yet. Well, I got one of them kind of set up, but we'll see. Time to finish this one. All right, be good.